the Rangers Journal Night.
Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. This is the Rangers Journal. My name is Doug, and you're watching the Lowdown, your bite-sized intro to our upcoming opponents. And today's episode is going to be covering the second leg of our Champions League playoff qualifier against Club Brugge, or Club Brugge. The first leg did not go the way that we hoped it would go. A disappointing 3-1 loss. After a calamitous 20 minutes opening. The defending was amateur at best at times, and we're going to touch on some of that today. And after that, Bruges didn't really need to get out of second gear. They were able to just see the game out. We did improve a little bit in the second half, managed to get a goal back. Could have maybe had a penalty, but it was not to be. So we go into this game needing to score at least 2 goals without reply to take the game to penalties, and 3 goals to overturn it completely, which will be a tall order against a quality side who, as I say, I think probably had more gears to go into if they'd really needed them in that first leg. So we'll have a quick look as ever at the form of the clubs going into the game. Rangers, as has been the case this season in our past 5, patchy form. We've only got 1 win in that 5, 2 losses, the loss to Bruges and the loss to Victoria Pleasant, and then our 2 draws against St Mirren and Dundee. So not a particularly encouraging level of form Rangers are in right now. In comparison to Club Brugge, who are just awash with wins, beating Salzburg home and away, and their previous qualifier in the Champions League, and then wins against Club Brugge and Zulte Wagram in their domestic competitions as well. So they're coming into this full of confidence with winning form on all their games. As I say, we go into this with patchy form. Russell Martin failing thus far to show really anything, or getting the team to show anything in terms of his ideal way of playing or his form. So we're kind of just going into this, I think, hoping that our European magic can take hold and that we will pull out a performance, our best performance of the season, probably our only good performance of the season, was in Europe against Victoria Pleasant at home, and when we won 3-0. That, as I say, everything felt like it kind of clicked in that game. So I think we're kind of hoping that a similar thing happens once again. Looking at what to expect, we obviously touched on this in the episode for the first leg, so I'll not go over it too much. Brugge do play a 4-2-3-1 formation, but that is fluid. It can change into more of a 4-3-3 or be a bit more defensive if they needed to. They play a lot in a way a lot like we would like to, possession orientated, fluid attacking, strong progressive passes. Our progressive passes are really poor. We play a lot of lateral passes across the pitch and back passes to defence. And they can be flexible. They do rely on their wingers and their fullbacks for overlapping, which they did to good extent against us. So similar sort of things, themes to what we saw. Looking at a couple of points from the first leg, in terms of tactical notes, I've brought up our very first attack in the game, which, looked okay. Bruges, you can see here, they've got 8 players, all in sort of solid defensive positions. They're back 4 in a reasonable line. The centre back pushed up slightly to deal with Danilo, who's and there you can see our attacking 3 are in good sort of equidistant positions, ready to kind of move. One can run in or make breaks. And you've got Rothwell and Dio advancing to provide passing options. And you see Raskin there, who's, as this picture is taken, just slipped the ball into Danilo and is moving into the centre to increase those passing options. But what really happens here is from a really good position, this is a good positioning, good positions for the players and the ball. the decision making, I think, is poor from Danilo. Danilo gets the ball. Well, in fact, he doesn't quite get the ball. The defender gets the ball, but it sort of knocks in front of him, so Danilo is able to recapture it. But rather than maybe look for Ant-Man, which I think probably would have been the pass, or even just to maybe turn and knock it maybe back to Raskin, he tries to turn and shoot, and it's the turn and shot that is easily blocked by the defender, and that then leads to them scoring their goal. And their first of their 3 goals. So you can see here, just looking at this again, we've now got lines here that show, really good passing triangles set up there. It doesn't take much for any of these players to move for there to be a passing route. You've got Raskin at the centre, at the heart of that, which is something he's been really good at. This one line in the foreground there is obviously going off the pitch, just off screen, was Megoma in his fullback position, who was pushed up, which is why I've got that one going there. But again, just kind of emphasising, at the beginning, and I think for until the second half, when we sort of started back, getting back into a bit of a rhythm. At the very beginning, it seemed like there was positives in there. The first couple of minutes, we started brightly until obviously the onslaught of their goals. But the thing that really caused those problems was our woeful defending, which highlighting here for their second goal at sort of 6.5 minutes. It comes from a corner. I've got the blue marks here, which sort of highlight we've got good marking in these positions, one-on-ones, players marking, they're all fine. The issue really is this clump in the middle, and the spare man, Gassam, who's marked in red there. He's not marking anyone. He's just in a bit of space, not really doing anything. But that's Stramash in the middle. Again, you've got another free player, not really marking anyone. But then you've 2 Rangers players. Sorry, you've 4 Rangers players to 2 Bruges players. So doubling up in areas where there isn't players, and that leaves their goal scorer on the penalty spot there, all on his own, ready to put that in. And probably the even most frustrating thing is if you kind of pay close attention to the corner being taken. So the camera angle from, if you're watching the highlights, the camera angle cuts just before the corner is taken to the sort of typical angle behind the corner taker. And if you look to his left in the distance, you can see him running from the edge of the box into that space completely unmarked. So it's not as if he was marked to start with and has lost a runner. There's no one there that he's managed to shake himself away from or lost. He's just been left completely free, and that's unexcusable. To have players that are as dangerous as the ones they have, and to have them not only unmarked to get a shot in, but unmarked from the start of the corner coming in, not picked up at all. It's just amateur defending at best, and that's the kind of thing that we're going to have to improve if we're going to get anything out of this second leg. Danger men, the same 2 I've selected previously. There's a number of people you could select from the team. As I say, they've got a really strong team, but these are the guys we talked about in that first video. Solis in particular, he got 2 assists in that first leg. He was really good in that game. A great player. Would love to have him at Rangers. Just really clever, full of trickery, full of running, full of effort. Loads of things that we're not always seeing in our team right now. Back then, he wasn't quite as maybe prominent as I thought he might have been, but still very steady. Played well, and I think, as I say, you can pick a number of players from their midfield that are dangerous. We could have gone through any number of them, but as I say, I still think for me these are, for different reasons, 2 of their most important players. In terms of ourselves, I think there's decisions to be made as to where he goes. I've got forgotten to take this man and badge out of there. Never mind. Just pretend that's a Club Brugge badge. That's all you can see. For me, there's decisions to be made, and again against St Mirren, the young man Finlay Curtis has shown again that he has an eye for goal, that he's dangerous. He came on in that game. He scored his goal. He then had another shot not too long after, within a few minutes, and then Sky flashed up that Sky flashed up that graphic that said, he'd taken 2 shots in the second half, and that was more than the rest of the entire Rangers team who'd taken 0 shots in the second half, which is utterly woeful. And I think, a little bit of that exuberance and youth would be useful. So for me, with the issues going on with Egaman, with Dessa's fitness not 100%, with Danilo not performing, I think we should just go for it. Put Curtis up front. It's not his natural position, but I think it's a position that he could play. And maybe even given that he's more naturally a winger himself, he could get some good interplay and maybe movement between himself, Kasama and Antman. But just more than anything else, I think you stick him up top, tell him to just make a nuisance of himself, get in the way, battle defenders, make them move. The times that he gets the ball are times that we would probably look like scoring. And I would put money on him to score if he was to start. So that's kind of my maybe sort of more out there pick for this match, as start Finlay Curtis up front, put a bit of faith into the young man. In terms of the rest of the team, I don't think there's anything necessarily too radical. There is maybe decisions to be made in midfield as to who starts. Again, I think Rothwell had another kind of poor game against St Mirren. Dio tends to play better in Europe. That being said, he wasn't great in the first leg, but I've brought him back in nonetheless. I did think he was better when he played, when he came on for St Mirren. He also will take a shot. He's not as accurate as at the moment as Finlay Curtis. Raskin, again, we know his qualities. I think he comes in there for me at that sitting position. And then Lau Cameron for his industry and his running and his effort. I put him in there. You've got players then like Rothwell, like I can't see his name now. Who am I looking for? Like Asgard, sorry, who can come on and potentially make a difference there. But that's what I'd go with there. And then the defense, I think, largely picks itself. Though I'm bringing James Tavernier back in for his experience, for his attacking threat, free kicks, and just those deep balls from defense out to attackers as well, which can often unlock European teams when they're more pushed forward, as we saw against Man United and Tottenham, for example. And Aarons just right now isn't really offering much. Aarons would potentially be more defensively solid, but we have to score goals if we're going to come through this game. So I think we need to go. We need to take the chance and play the player that's got the better attacking chance of contributing to us. So in terms of predictions, obviously the last game I predicted us to win 2-1. We lost 3-1. That's just an all-out loss for predictions there. I'm going 2-2 for this game. Unfortunately, I think it might be a step too far. I do think Bruges could score goals at home. Obviously, they easily scored goals at Ibrox. I do think we will lift our game slightly. As I say, we have a tendency to do that. The players themselves, I think, will just try and play for a bit more pride. And they want to play in the Champions League, so it's something that they can go for. They have a tendency to play better when they're the underdog, which they very much will be and are now. So I can see us maybe getting a goal or two, but unfortunately, as I said earlier, I think Bruges, they settled once they got their 3, and they could probably have stepped it up a bit more if they'd really wanted in that first game. So, I think they can score as well. So I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw, which ultimately would see Rangers out of the Champions League and going into the Europa League phase, which isn't the worst thing in the world. As I say, unfortunately, financially, it's nowhere near the same. We won't have quite the same glamour ties that we might have had. But given how things are with Russell Martin right now, you'll be lucky potentially if we're able to maintain our good Europa League form. So Europa League is probably the right place for us right now. As I say, it's a competition that we can go and do well in, and hopefully we'll go and get out the league phase again. And have another few great nights in European football. So we'll see how things go with that. So thank you for joining this Lowdown. To say not as quite as an upbeat one, perhaps we would have liked to have had after the first leg, but you never know. Rangers do tend to pull things out often in Europe, so it's not it's not 100% foregone that we'll be at the Champions League, but as I say, it will be a difficult one. It's a huge ask at this point. But we beat Fenerbahce, and they came to Ibrox and got a 2-0 to put it to penalties. So it's not an impossible task. It's not an undoable task. It's not an unthinkable task, but it is a difficult task, and one that we'd need to be playing at our best to have the best chance of pulling off. And we are absolutely nowhere near our best right now. So fingers crossed for the team. Let's hope they can do something to turn fortunes around a little and give us something positive to talk about instead of the disappointment that we've had over the last few weeks. Hope you enjoy the game, and I will see you next for the lowdown for the Celtic match of the weekend. My name's been Doug. You've been watching the Lowdown. This is the Rangers Journal, and remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. Bye.